Hi there, and welcome along to episode 146 of the Gersnet Weekly Podcast, a totally free and independent Rangers podcast made by fans for fans, where the content is always 100% free. And as we all know by now, it's not just the podcast that we have here at Gersnet, but if you head over to the website at www.gersnet.co.uk, you'll find a whole host of excellent content there as well, including social media, some excellent articles, a history archive, and a very friendly discussion forum as well. So please do head over to the website and have a look if you've not done so already. It's just gone 9:30 on Sunday, the 22nd of August. If you're joining us live this evening, then thank you very, very much for giving up your Sunday night to come and join us on the show. Please do leave us your questions, your comments there on the YouTube stream. We've got Frankie patrolling and marshalling that, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. As always, the pod will be available for download on a Monday morning, and that's wherever you get your podcasts from, including Acast, iTunes, YouTube, Castbox, Stitcher, and also on Spotify. If you've never downloaded the show before, then maybe give us a wee subscribe and a little like and a comment as well, as it really does help the show to grow. This evening, what we're going to be doing on the show is looking back at today's game against Ross County up in Dingwall. We'll also take a wee look ahead to Alashkert, return leg out in Armenia that's coming up this week, and a little run over the state of the squad and the transfer activity that we've had so far. My name's Ross Bennett. I'm going to be your host this afternoon. And joining me, we've got two excellent guests. First of all, backed by extraordinarily popular demand, it is the ever-popular John McCallum. John, how are you this evening?
I'm fine. I'm well, thanks. Yeah, popular demand. I think that means no one else was available at short notice.
No, certainly not. I couldn't possibly say so. I think the last time that you and I did a show together, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was just after we had scalped Real Madrid. It's been quite a few weeks since then. Are you still feeling the same optimism that we all shared that Sunday evening?
No. Yeah, that was the last time I was on. We were playing exhibitions for Real Madrid, and you were doing shows from hotels, and life was very different. It was like 30 degrees in Glasgow, and very different now, unfortunately, but that's okay. I'm still fairly comfortable. No panic yet. Don't panic. No,
exactly. You're right. It was unseasonably warm that day, and I had just walked back from Ibrox to the Ibis Hotel in Glasgow city centre. 30-degree heat, and my underwear have only just dried out from all the sweat that I've run out of it. So
there's an image, yeah.
There you go. Also joining us this evening, it's a very warm welcome to the debutant on the show, Gary Valentine. Gary, how are you?
I'm not bad, thanks.
Excellent. Not good. Are you excited to be making your debut this evening?
Yeah, I'm glad to win today. Something good to talk about.
Exactly. We've had people come on making their debuts after losses and after Old Firm scuddings, and it's never easy. So, no, you're very welcome.
Yeah, thanks.
Right. I think we might as well dive straight into this afternoon's game. Obviously, Rangers travel up to Dingwall. A fairly comprehensive 4-2 victory. John, it was immediately obvious to me that we'd raised our game. We've had a few performances, certainly with Dundee United, with the two Malmo games, arguably even with the Alashkert home leg last week. Fairly obvious that we'd raised our game and that the tempo was up. We were looking a little bit more fluid and a little bit more dynamic. Are we possibly starting to find that match sharpness that we've been missing so far this season?
Yeah, perhaps. I'd maybe take slight issue. I actually think we've started most games fairly well. I think actually against Malmo in both games we started well. We were on top. Particularly the game at Ibrox, we were on top, and half time really it was looking like everything was going well, and I think the difference between those games and today is we were playing Ross County, and Ross County aren't as good a team, frankly. We got the 2 goals, and again looked like we were coasting, and then as we've done this season, we switch off. We just have a little period where we switch off. But I think to get to the kind of nub of your question, we looked a bit sharper. I thought our passing was a little crisper. I thought our movement was better. Things seem to be coming off that haven't been coming off in the last few games. How much of that was down to the opposition perhaps not being as good as some of the teams we've played? I mean, when we played Dunfermline, again, a poorer team, we looked, it was a fairly comprehensive victory. I think today was a more comfortable victory than the score suggested, and at times perhaps when it was 2-1 and and then 3-2. You know, again, you're thinking, you know, this doesn't reflect the match I'm watching. So sharpness coming back, I think that's something that's going to happen, you know, as we get into the season. But I actually feel that we started today in the same manner we started most of our games. Today it just kind of came off.
Yeah, and I guess come off it did. A really impressive goal from Joe Aribo. John, how impressed were you today with what he brought to the team?
Yeah, I thought this was Aribo of last season.
Yeah,
definitely his best game. Whether perhaps a mix of getting sharper, a mix also of perhaps opposition, but I thought having Kamara back probably actually helps Aribo. I think Kamara does the what was it they once described Deschamps as, the water carrier. You know, there's a bit of that in Kamara. Kamara does a lot of the unseen stuff. He closes people down. He takes away the space, and I think that allows players like Aribo to flourish. You know, the creative players then to actually come into the game a bit more. Yeah, I suspect we all realised we were missing Kamara for a lot of the games so far this season, but perhaps maybe not quite as much as we did until you see him playing today. But Aribo, his goal was beautiful. What a lovely goal. His first touch as well, the way he just brought himself around the player, and the awareness and the ability to... It's funny that, you know, I'm assuming neither of you were actually at the game today, and apologies if I were, but it's a terrible, terrible camera angle at Ross County. It's just, you feel like it's almost subterranean, you're watching it. Yet for the goal, it was a perfect camera angle. You really saw the bend on the shot. You saw the quality of that goal, which is ironic because every other aspect of the game, the pictures are just terrible. You despair sometimes of Scottish football. But beautiful goal. You know, Aribo had a good game. Booking aside, he almost had the perfect game.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It almost makes you... I think you're absolutely right when you talk about Glenn Kamara, and we realise what we've been missing, and it really does make me kind of rue the Malmo games and what could have been had Glenn Kamara been available and not suspended for being the victim of racist abuse.
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's UEFA. Yeah.
Gary, speaking of creativity in the middle of the park, we had 4 goals today from 4 different goal scorers. And arguably, maybe not so much last season, but in a couple of seasons preceding last year, arguably we've been a team that's relied too heavily on one man to score our goals. How important and how encouraging is it to see goals coming from various different areas on the park?
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. Before last season, it was Alfredo Morelos or nobody. So it's such a good thing there's more goals round the team.
Yeah, it is vitally important. And Connor Goldson, Gary, gets the second goal. It's become kind of a feature of his game, has it not, of these set-piece deliveries coming in and him rising highest or breaking the offside trap. How important do you think it is for Connor Goldson to be getting these goals, but for James Tavernier and Borna Barisic or Calvin Bassey to be on form, providing that service and putting the balls in the box?
Well, they've got to be, because that's like the main part of our game plan is crosses in for the fullbacks. And if you look at the last few games where we've not played great, the crosses into the box have been poor. That's why we've not won these games. Yeah,
I think you're right. There's a lot of discussion, I guess, Gary, about whether, you know, do you drop Tavernier? I mean, Gerard clearly has dropped Borna Barisic and has replaced him with Calvin Bassey. Do you think that the 2 deputies in the fullback areas, your Calvin Basseys and your Nathan Pattersons, do they provide that same kind of quality output for the likes of whether it's Connor Goldson at a set piece or Alfredo Morelos to really get on these deliveries and attack them?
It's a good debate. I'm not entirely sure. If it was me, I would always stick with my best players. I think at the moment are Tavernier and Barisic. Although I think Bassey is there on merit. I think he's took the challenge that Gerrard's gave. If you get your chance, and he's took it. So I think he's in there by merit. But I think Nathan Patterson's maybe a bit too soon for him, as much as I love him.
Yeah, we'll come on to Nathan Patterson in a bit more detail as well in a moment when we talk about this alleged bid that's come in from Everton. John, how about yourself? Do you kind of agree that Rangers are no longer a club that's over-reliant on Alfredo Morelos, and is today a good example of that?
It's a good example in terms of the number of goals scored and being moved around the team. All I would say is I actually thought Morelos had a very, very good game today. Morelos held the ball up so well. He linked up play. He was actually involved in a lot of our good work today. He gave their defenders no peace. He was pulling people over. He kept his composure at all times. I actually thought that was, it's the best game certainly this season from Morelos. I mean, I felt against Malmo in the first half, Morelos looked like he was going to cause them all sorts of problems. You really get the feeling Morelos was up for it. Obviously, he got the goal, but he was busy. And then everyone fell away in the second half, and we're not going to go over that again. But do I still feel we're relying on him? I do to an extent. I still think he is our best forward player. I don't think Eaton and I don't think Roof are the same type of player. I don't know enough about Sakala yet to know whether he could be, I think there are similarities in Sakala seems to be a smaller guy, a mobile guy. He doesn't look to have the strength of Morelos. He doesn't look to have that side to him physically, but I haven't seen enough of him to know. He looks like a player who'll play on the shoulder, who'll get 2 or 3 yards space because he's quick, maybe a bit more like Defoe than Morelos. So no, to be honest with you, I think we are still quite reliant on him. We're not necessarily reliant on him for goals now, but I think we're reliant on him for what he does that lets other players come in and create space. Wherever Morelos goes, he takes 2 defenders, and that what we did so well last season was let Morelos take defenders and look at midfielders and the wide players coming in then and capitalising on that space, Ross. And to be honest with you, I don't think we've not got a light for light replacement. If Morelos is out the team for any length of time, we have to change our tactics.
Mm-hmm. No, I think you're absolutely right. Gary, we conceded 2 goals today, and I think I'm right in saying that's the 3rd time this season that we've conceded 2 or more goals in a match, and that's very, very unlike us. There haven't been wholesale changes to our backline. Haven't been any changes to our backline from the back four that was so impressive and so resolute last season. Arguably, poor defending, poor concentration, certainly for the first goal. And also arguably for the second goal was a penalty, and I don't think you can ascribe any blame to Calvin Bassey for giving away that penalty, but the way that the ball was given away or that Yanis Hadji loses his man in the middle of the park kind of gave rise to that opportunity. So arguably poor defending, poor concentration on both goals there. Does that make you nervous ahead of the week that we've got? Really, we can't afford to be conceding goals in Armenia on Thursday, and just a small matter of the Old Firm next week.
And a word, yes, I'm worried about it. What my worry is that I see mistakes this season that I saw in the first and second season, and they weren't there last year. So I'm hoping last year's not the one off. We just always seem to have a brain fart in your defence, and I think you could probably count in one hand in the last 4 years how many goals we have lost due to the other team being better, and all the rest are like it's simple mistakes, whether it's not picking up a guy, losing the ball in the midfield, as you said today. But Gerrard did say that in his post-match interview today, that they're working on it, and I really, really hope they get to the bottom of it, because we can't go back to how we were the first and second season, because that's the reason we didn't win the league.
What do you think could cause that? Because, like I say, these aren't different players. These are the same players that didn't concede any goals for, the first 8 games of last season. The players haven't lost the ability to defend. So where are these lapses coming from?
I don't know. I think it's too easy to say it's the fans coming back. I see a lot of people, even the media, try to make it that it's the fans being back are causing us to maybe panic a bit. But I laughed earlier after we conceded one of the goals. I think it was Hadji lost the ball when it went out for a throw-in or something, and the camera zoomed in on him. And I was like, he looks like he's panicked. And there was no need for Rangers to be panicked. We're controlling the game. We lost a really sloppy goal. I don't know if it's a confidence thing. I don't know if he's rotating the defence too much when it shouldn't be. As I said, at the first and second season, he done it with Worrell, we done it with Macaulay, but then he done it last year as well. That's I don't know. It could be the fact that just the team's no clicked yet. Aribo didn't play a lot of games. Kamara's not played a lot of games. Roof's not played a lot of games. I don't think Barisic has came back fit. So I don't know if it's just a case for no firing on all cylinders yet. I'm hoping that's all it is.
Yeah, and whatever it is, I think this is the week that we need to get that sorted.
Definitely.
Same with yourself, Gary. Some really impressive performances today. We've mentioned Aribo, we've mentioned Morelos, we've mentioned Kamara, who I thought was excellent. Ryan Kent, whilst he didn't get his goal, it was a very dynamic performance. Is there an argument to say that we should have brought these lads off a little bit earlier than they did? I think actually on Rangers TV, so Ian Ferguson today was making comments sort of saying, I'm surprised we've not made any substitutions yet. We've got a hell of a long trip to make on Thursday and then to come back and have Celtic at home next Sunday. Is there an argument to say these lads should have been brought off earlier to get more of a rest, or was the game not safe enough to do that?
I don't think it was safe enough, to be honest. I don't think the bench had enough strength in it as well. Scott Wright was probably on the bench. He could have maybe came on for Kent especially. I don't know. Possibly. But a problem I've got now is that we've got a big squad and he signed new guys and those guys don't seem fit or ready to come in. But I thought that Juninho would have maybe been on the bench today. He could have came on and got some minutes. But when you looked at the bench, there wasn't much there that I said they could come on. You brought in Arfield and Lundstrom. I don't think they were for replacements. So I don't know. Players are injured. Once players come back, maybe a bit easier to do that.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, John. I think Gary was absolutely spot on a few moments ago when he mentioned that having fans back in the stadium is a kind of lazy excuse for maybe why we'd be having these defensive issues or defensive lapses. But what was the impact, do you think, of Rangers having travelling fans again today? Obviously, we didn't have any fans when we went away to Tannadice, but there was a very, very loud, very vocal presence of Rangers fans today in Dingwall. Do you think that had a motivational impact on the players?
You like to think that the players don't require that, but I think it does have an effect. I've seen it have an effect. I've been going to games long enough to see it have a positive effect and have a negative effect on individual players and on teams. I think the best thing about it was this sense of normality, this feeling of normality, of crowd noise, of that was great. From I wasn't there and watching it on on the laptop. It was great to kind of have that feel about the place. It was great to see the flags. There was flags there from the borders and people who travelled a fair distance to be at that match today. So that was great. I think, in my opinion, our away support is different from our home support. I think the away support is generally a more supportive support. I think they tend to get behind the team more. I think the home support can be harder to please. I think the expectation on the club at home is different from the expectation away. And I think the players respond better to the away support. I think there's more of a rapport. I think they appreciate the away support, the effort that people have made to be there. And I think there tends to be a slightly better rapport with the away support than there is at home. Did it make a difference? Only the players can tell you that. I suspect it did, in that these are all players who grew up, became professionals playing in stadiums with an atmosphere. And, for all Ross County have a small ground, it created an atmosphere. There was an atmosphere today, and you could hear the support right through the match. And I think that was, beneficial for the team, beneficial for the players, certainly beneficial for those of us watching at home. It's great not to be able to hear the shouts from the players again. It just kind of felt for me like another step along the road to some sort of normality again. And having, certainly having both sets of fans in the ground today, I think it certainly improved the atmosphere. And I feel it probably did. Ross, I think it probably did lift the players.
Yeah, well, I certainly hope so. I think our travelling support is spectacular, and you're right, it's a different feeling to the Ibrox support, which is strange because it's the same folk, it's the same guys, but it was that return to normality of feeling everything's back to normal. Rangers are supported by a loud, passionate, vocal supporting travelling support, doing the business on the park. It was really wonderful to see. Gary, the return of fans means that we've had our first experience of the MyGers ticketing allocations, and suffice it to say, it's not gone down universally well. Now, without getting kind of into the ins and outs of MyGers tiers and points and how tickets are allocated, I guess the overriding question is, we have so many thousands of fans who want to watch Rangers, whether it's at home or away, and we could have filled that stadium 100 times over today. Is there an easy, fair, happy for everyone way to decide how these tickets get allocated? Because there's always someone who's going to be disadvantaged, right? Whether it's the older chap who isn't so good with technology and can't log on and do first come, first serve because he'll never be first, or it's the larger Rangers supporters club that now have to decide which 10% of their members go, and should we organise a bus for that or should we not? Is there a solution that suits everyone here?
I don't think there is. I think that a fan base our size, as you say, you can't please everybody. But thankfully, I don't have a season ticket anymore. I'm not involved in MyGers. But for an outsider looking in, to me, it's like the more money you've got, the better chance you've got to buying a ticket. And it shouldn't be that way. It should try and be a bit fairer, I think.
Yeah, John, how about yourself? Is there an easy solution to all of this?
Ross, I'm very conscious that our erstwhile colleague Colin has publicly stated sometimes criticism, and I can't help but feel that perhaps minor management and Rangers watch this programme and have picked up on that criticism, and that's why his Rangers TV feeds never work. And that's why when he turns up with his smart card to get into the game, he doesn't get in. So can I just say, for the record, I think it's a brilliant system. I'm very, very impressed with everybody at Rangers TV and at MyGers and everybody involved with the ticketing. And just keep up the good work, guys. Keep up the good work. Be serious. I can remember, I'm old enough to remember when you used to have to go at 8 o'clock in the morning and queue outside the ticket office to try and get a ticket for home games, for cup finals, for games like that. People moaned then, because you didn't get there early enough, you didn't get a ticket. As Gary says, this is a perennial issue. In this day and age, it is surprising to me that the club can tell, if you've bought tickets for every single away game and paid for them, then I think you should be first in the queue for tickets for cup finals. I think you should be first in the queue for ticket for semi-finals. For the games that are hard to get tickets for, I think you should be first in the queue. I understand why they brought in MyGers, because it obviously works two ways. It potentially brings in extra revenue from people who are buying merchandise and that side of things. And it maybe helps them look, because you've probably got quite a lot of people who go to or who buy every away ticket, and it still allows games at the Rangers Celtic game, but there's maybe only going to be 800 tickets available. You take away players' tickets and things like that. There's probably only 500 tickets available. And you've got as many season ticket holders as us. That's a huge problem. I think all they can do is the guys who go, or at least the guys who buy tickets for every game, I think they go at the top of the queue. And when there's too many of them, you just have to figure out some way of saying, right, you didn't get one this time, you'll be at the top of the queue the next time. I think it's the best you can do. It's a thankless job. I wouldn't like to be the person who has to make these decisions. A long, long time ago, when there was human beings in the ticket office who you could go and see, my dad and I used to bring them in a massive big box of chocolates every Christmas. And just, listen, thanks for your help, guys. It's been great, and it's amazing how they remembered your face come February when you went in trying to get an extra ticket for Dundee United away. But, electronics has changed all that. So the human touch is no longer there. It's a thankless job, Ross. I feel sorry for them. Anything that rewards the loyalty, and I say that now as somebody who rarely goes to away games. If there are guys paying to go to these games, then I think they have to get first crack. My only thing with Rangers just now regarding ticketing, and again, I don't have a solution to this, is it's actually very hard to bring a new person to Ibrox now. because we've got so many season ticket holders, because it's actually difficult to introduce somebody to Rangers games, to bring someone along to their first game, or maybe someone who's an interest in football, hasn't maybe chosen their team just yet, or somebody who's new to the city, to actually get them along to games now is very difficult. Again, I don't have a solution for that. It would be nice if there was a way of making the ground bigger that isn't going to bankrupt us. But that again is probably my only kind of gripe just now. My Gers, I suspect it probably won't exist in 18 months, and we'll have gone with something else. It was worth a try. It's probably worked for some people. You're always going to have folk who are unhappy.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fair point. Whatever the system is, whether it's fastest finger first, or it's reward points and tiers and loyalty and this and that, you're always going to have someone who's unhappy. I think you make a really interesting point, though, about how difficult it is to bring a new person to Ibrox and availability. And in 2 months, I'm turning 30, and it's a couple of days after we play Hearts at home, and I want to bring 4 or 5 mates from down in London up to Glasgow. We'll have a weekend. That'll be my big 30th bash as we come up, and I have no idea how I'm going to find 5 tickets. I mean, not even remotely close to each other. So sort of saying, right, you're in the Govan rear, you're in the Broomland front, and we'll all just have to congregate afterwards, because I think that's the only chance that we get is maybe sort of showing up on the day of the game and looking at someone who's stood outside Ibrox subway station with a ticket in the air. But I guess that's part of the experience. John, I'll give you the last word on the Ross County game before we move on. And I apologise because we've not planned this question. I'm just going to spring it on you. How satisfying is it to pump Malky Mackay? in a footballing context, by the way, not in any kind of sort of Malky Mackay context.
Speaking as Mrs. Mackay, I mean, he didn't pick up that tan in Dingwall, did he?
No.
He's the only guy in the Highlands that looks like that. I mean, I'd actually forgotten that he was the manager. Mm-hmm. It was only on Friday when I was kind of reading about the game. I was like, Jesus, he's there. I thought it was still John Hughes. I had forgotten he'd gone there. Mm-hmm. He's a funny guy, Mackay, because he had a decent start to his managerial career. He did look like he maybe had something down in England, and obviously it all went wrong for him, and he brought all that on himself. Fairly controversial appointment to the SFA. Mm-hmm. And now he's at Ross County. Ross County is a hard gig. I know, speaking to some people who've been involved in football up there, that they have difficulty attracting players.
Yeah.
Your St Mirrens, your teams based in the kind of central belt are usually able to attract players to play for them, because they don't have to move house. They don't have to uproot their family. They can remain based in it. You can live in Edinburgh and play for St Mirren. You can travel through for training. You can play for Kilmarnock and live in Fife. You can't play for Ross County and live there. You want to play for Ross County, you're going to have to move north. So they have some challenges there. I do have some sympathy for them as a team. If Mackay is out of work by Christmas, I won't shed any tears. I still have a memory of Malcolm Mackay and Brian Laudrup, which you two are probably far too young to have seen in flesh, but you may have seen it on video since, where Brian Laudrup just leaves them for dead. He was a very limited football player, and I have a feeling he's reached his shelf life as a manager as well. I don't think he's going to be successful there.
No, I think you're absolutely right. Okay, we will move on then from the Ross County game. Very successful day for us up in Dingwall this afternoon. Before we move on to look at Alashkare and have a little run over the state of the squad, I just wanted to bring an update on one of the partners that we have here at Gersnet, which is footballprizes.co.uk, who at the moment are running a raffle or a prize draw for an Alfredo Morelos signed and custom framed Rangers shirt. As always, there's a maximum of 99 tickets that are available in the competition. There will be a live draw this coming Tuesday. That's the 24th of August at 8:30 p.m. It's £5.95 per ticket. As I say, there's only 99 tickets being sold, so the tickets are very, very limited, so please do get moving. As I say, check out the website at footballprizes.co.uk, or also have a look on the Gersnet Twitter feed for the direct link. Gary, before we look ahead to Alashkare on Thursday, though, and Gersnet Podcast will do a preview show, I'm sure, to look ahead to that one. it's worth having a wee look at the state of the squad as the transfer window edges towards closure. And you mentioned Juninho Bacuna whilst we were talking about Ross County there. So it's been formally announced he's joined on a 2-year deal. It was another one of those where we kept it very, very quiet up until the day before it was announced, when Gerrard kind of acknowledged in a press conference, we're probably going to announce a signing tomorrow. And that's, I think that's a good thing that Rangers are going about their business that way. So he comes in, he's a fairly versatile, allegedly quite dynamic midfielder, lots of Premier League experience, comes in at a good age. Is this a good bit of business for you?
All I've seen it from is the YouTube video, the Ready YouTube video, but it looks very, very good from what I've seen. Probably exactly what we're looking for. Somebody that plays in the final third. I think a lot of players that we sign, like Lundstrom and that, very similar to what we already have. But I think this guy could kind of compete with Aribo and Hadji further up the park. He's not for a glamorous team, that's the only thing. So you wonder, why was he playing with Huddersfield? But the thing that we do now is we bring in the raw players, the diamonds, and try and shape them a bit, as we've done with Aribo. Getting guys like that, Bassey, brought him for the lower leagues. So I'm hoping they can do it with him. But certainly, if you look at his YouTube video, it looks very, very exciting.
Is there an argument to suggest, though, that central midfield is perhaps not the area that we needed reinforcements? When you look at, maybe not playing the same role, but Glenn Kamara, Joe Aribo, Ryan Jack, John Lundstrom, Scotty Arfield, Steve Davis, arguably, Stephen Kelly. Was it necessary, do you think, to add another? Do you think he possibly brings something that we don't currently have, or was it more about adding competition and depth?
Yeah, I think it's maybe a bit of both, to be honest. See, really, I think your three strongest midfielders, as it stands now, are last season's players, and that's what kind of worries me a bit with Lundstrom. Anyway, understand he's just in the door, but at the minute, if you picked your strongest team, it's Ryan Jack, Kamara, Davis, probably. I think Aribo should play further up the park. Same with Hadji. So I'd like to see somebody come in and improve the team, and I just hope that these guys that they've brought in are, and they're not just squad players, or to give us a bit more depth. And
there have been a lot of rumours, Gary, about Joey Veerman coming in this summer. Do you think that this maybe puts that to bed, that either we were focused on the wrong target, or we were priced out for Joey Veerman, and this guy cynically maybe was number two?
Yeah, quite possibly. If it's true that it was £7 million, I think being put out of the Champions League's hit a lot of things in the head, which is understandable. We've got to balance the books. Don't want us spending money we've not got. So it quite possibly is. It's just we've went to the second on the list. We went to a Europa League player instead of a Champions League player.
John, I think the question of the Champions League and the knock-on effect that has, I think, is a really good point. I would have expected, in all honesty, us to have moved someone on by now. It's been over a week since we were put out of the Champions League, and I'm sure that does have a financial knock-on implication. Are you surprised that we don't seem to be, and we'll talk about Patterson in a moment, but we don't seem to be getting large bids for the marquee players? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's a good thing if you're a supporter. I suspect it's a bad thing if you're a director. Mm-hmm. Well, I think you have to be honest and say we don't know if there have been bids. Or at least I don't know if there have been bids. I suspect there has. I mean, certainly there was talk a few weeks ago about Porto and Morelos. I don't know if a formal bid was made. I don't know if an inquiry was made. If it was all just agent talk, media talk. I don't know. It would surprise me if we haven't had some level of inquiry for some of our more obvious players. I suspect the level of inquiry has not been to our matching our valuations of our players. Ross, again, I could be wrong. I don't have any. I'd love to tell you I've got a mole on the inside telling me this. I don't. I'm just guessing. But I suspect there has been interest, and I suspect there may well still be interest before the end of the month. I think we've probably said to the players, look, potential Champions League football, stay just now, let's see if we can qualify. Obviously, that's not happened. We need to qualify for the Europa League. It would be really disappointing if we ended up in the European Conference League. So qualification on Thursday is essential. So again, I'd be quite disappointed if there was any business done between now and then. But after that, again, it wouldn't come. Certainly, Kamara leaving wouldn't come as a big surprise with what's left in his contract. It's down to what kind of valuation people are willing to put on it. It's been a funny summer, Ross, for transfers. You've had a couple of eye-watering transfers at down in England. You've had the Sancho to Man United and Grealish to Man City, which have just been for mind-boggling amounts of money. But you go down a few levels, and actually, it's not a lot of movement there. And let's be honest, it's down a few levels where the teams are that are likely to come look for our players. Teams like West Ham have not strengthened their side at all so far this season, and I think that's the kind of club that's likely to come in for a Morelos or a Kamara or a Kent. I think it's clubs in the kind of mid to lower levels of the Premier League, or a team in France, or those, maybe a team in Portugal. Those are the kind of leagues that are going to come and take our players just now. I don't think Man City are looking seriously at any of our players. I don't think Barcelona are looking at any of our players. In fact, the way Barcelona's finances are, we're probably more likely to take one of their players than the other way around just now. But does it worry me? No. I mean, I'd quite like it if Morelos and Kamara didn't leave. I think it would be, as I said, I don't have to meet with the bank manager about it. But as a fan, I would rather they stayed. I think there has been interest. I think there will continue to be interest because they're very, very good players. It's just whether that interest is, and there'll be a game of, it's a game of, who blinks first coming up, isn't there? And we might be forced to take an offer for a player that we'd maybe rather not have taken. It might not be the offer we were hoping for, but we might have no choice but to take it. And I think as supporters, we'd probably have to be realistic about that. But until it happens, the club have been very good or very bad, whichever way you look at it, but they've been very good at keeping things quiet. Like you talked about this Jorginho Bacuna. I had heard nothing spoken about him before he signed. The chap, Jordan, I can't remember his full name, who writes for The Athletic, had reported that we'd signed the young Colombian from Honka.
Yes, Juan Alegria, yeah.
So he had reported that we'd signed him, but I've not seen or heard anything official on that. So I'm assuming he either got that wrong or else he got it right, but it hasn't been made public yet, that it's still maybe just not quite been finalised. And again, these things may all be down to players leaving, and I suspect there's a few things going on in the background that will become apparent in the next 10 days or so.
Yeah. What I will say to that is that, and it's Jordan Campbell at The Athletic. Jordan, if you're listening, Jordan, John would remember your name if you were the guy who dealt out the tickets for Ibrox, but you have no power there. So,
Jordan, not only would I remember your name, but you would have had chocolates from me at Christmas.
I know. Start pulling your weight, Jordan. No, I think it's a fair point. The thing that worries me there, John, is that the number, and Gerrard said it after the game today. I think there was some fan media were asking questions, or had press access to Gerrard after the game, and spoke about Nathan Patterson. Again, we'll come on to that in a second. And Gerrard talks about all of the players have a number. They all have a value. And whilst it's not Gerrard who assigns that number or says yes or no, what worries me is that number, the number is X. It was X plus 2, or it was X plus 3 or 4, but then the Champions League exit happens. And so now it's at X. And then I don't know the state. None of us know the state of our finances because we're not on the boards or Celtic fans. And so we don't know how much money's in the bank. And what worries me is if it's not a lot of money in the bank, then X might become X minus 1 or X minus 2 by the time we get to deadline day. And then there's no time to replace. And that's the bit that makes me nervous. Conversely, if you're a buying club and you want to sign Morelos or you want to sign Kamara, and you have made these inquiries and we've said no because you're offering us X minus 4, Then it gets to deadline day and they still need a player. Ideally, the number rises. But that probably shows how out of touch I am with how football business actually works, because none of us have any idea, I suppose, at the end of the day.
If you've watched those kind of Amazon documentaries, Sunderland and even the Spurs one and things, you do realise that, some of it is well planned and some of it just seems to be absolutely haphazard, just crazy stuff with agents pulling strokes and guys using clubs to get better deals at a different club, and that clearly is just part of part of football, and part of football that we don't see, that we are not exposed to, and we just assume that a director of football phones a director of football at another club and says, I'm interested in X, I'll offer you this for him, and there's a bit of haggling and then everybody shakes hands, and that's clearly not what happens. That's not the reality of professional football at that level. Look, I'm pleased we're not selling our players just now. I'm certainly pleased we're not selling them, undervaluing them. But you're right. At some point, someone will make us an offer which we will need to accept. And, you just have to have trust in the players that are there and the management and the team. There are players just now who are not getting a game. And perhaps if a player moves on, that's the chance for somebody to step up and show that they should have been getting a game. And that's all part of it. Brilliant players have left Rangers over the years. Players that I shed tears over leaving. There's no one in the team just now that I feel that strongly about. There are a few I'd be sad to see, but they're all replaceable.
Yeah. Well, speaking, Gary, of players that step up and players that we might be sad to see leave, Nathan Patterson, according to the Mirror, I think it was this morning, was subject of a £5 million bid from Everton that Rangers have apparently rejected. Again, after the game today, Gerrard seemed to not really know anything about this. He said, I only just got told and I didn't know it was 5 million, and I'll ask the question when I get back on the bus, which I don't imagine is entirely true. But £5 million for Nathan Patterson, is that anywhere close to the right number for you?
No, just for his potential. But at the same time, I think a lot of Rangers fans, maybe including myself, rate a lot of our players higher than what they maybe are. Like, we don't have a good history selling players for big money. I think off the top of my head was maybe Alan Hutton, the last player we sold for. It wasn't even 10 million, I don't think, it was 9 million. You'll look at Kieran Tierney, who'd played maybe three seasons for Celtic before he made his big money move. But they've had history before that of selling players for big money. We've not got that. So I don't think we're going to jump for basically nothing to say 20 million for a top player. Coming back to Patterson, I think the problem could be that if we've got a really good player, who I think Patterson is, we're going to lose him to the big teams probably after just a couple of games, and we just need to deal with that because it's the way the football world is. Or like a Billy Gilmore, he will not even get to see the first team and they'll be away. So we probably need to be realistic that if players are that good, they won't be here for long.
Yeah, and I suppose it's encouraging that a team like Everton would want to come in for one of our players. But Gary, you mentioned Celtic have a history of selling players for big money and we don't. I mean, this would be, obviously not going for £5 million, but if he were to leave for 5 million, that's less than half of what Celtic allegedly got for Jeremy Frimpong, which, as you talk about potential, that's clearly not quite right. Celtic, again, allegedly get £13 million for Chris Ayer in the last year of his contract after having been sort of resoundingly embarrassed for 12 months by this Rangers team. How does that happen? How does a club become good at selling players like that? Is it all about media narrative? Is it something else? How is it that Rangers? You're right. I think Alan Hutton still is our record sale at £8 or £9 million. What's going on?
And probably before that it was Boomsong as well, which is probably about 4 years before that. It's something we've just never done. Obviously, changed days, but famously Martin Bain just paid everybody off. They didn't sell players. Mm-hmm. I suppose there's got to be a time where we'll be in a position where we can actually reject a bid for a player. But as John was saying, we don't know the ins and outs of your finances. So plus COVID, you don't know how COVID's going to really impact us till this year. So if it could be a case of if 60 million came in for a Morelos, or even 10 million came in for Patterson, Rangers can maybe be in a position to reject that. Mm-hmm. But we don't know. Because of the Champions League there, we might need to. And we might need to accept a player, a bid for a player which we don't really think he's worth, but we need the money.
Yeah. John, how about yourself?
Can I just come in that?
Yeah, of course.
Right. I mean, I think we've all looked at this, and I saw the clip with Gerrard earlier, where Gerrard literally laughs at £5 million for a player that's played 12 games for us. It's actually exceptional money for a guy who cost us nothing. Now, I don't think we'll sell Patterson for £5 million, and I think we'd all be disappointed if we did. But at the same time, it's a lot of money for a guy who isn't even on our first team just now. And the pressure there is that Patterson suddenly says, you know what, I'm not actually getting a game here. So, maybe I move on. Maybe I would like to know what another team is going to, maybe they'll give me a game. So there's definitely some challenges there with Patterson. The Celtic thing, I think, if we can all be honest with each other on the Celtic thing, the word allegedly in your thing was doing a lot of heavy lifting there, and I think that's probably fair. But what you have to say about Celtic, certainly prior to the last couple of seasons, is that one of the reasons they were getting good money, and one of the reasons they're still getting decent money for players, is that their players have tended to go on and do well in bigger leagues. The guy Van Dijk obviously is the kind of standout one there who's moved on from Celtic and gone on to show himself to be one of the best centre halves in the world. Much as it pains me to say, Kieran Tierney isn't a bad player. I did my best to ignore him when he was playing in this city, but you can't help but notice at Arsenal he's one of the better players in that league now in that position. They had the boy, I forget his name, the Kenyan international who went to Southampton, and I think they ended up at Spurs. So they've actually got a reasonable record of selling on players at the right age to a bigger league, and it's actually going quite well for them. And that's why their players attract better fees, because there is an understanding in football that actually maybe these are players who can then move on to the next level. Gary's right. We haven't done that for a while. The last player, Billy Gilmore apart, the last player from our club who was actually sought after was Lewis McLeod. And Lewis McLeod was very unfortunate with injury. I actually think Lewis McLeod, could have gone on and had a very, very good career, but for the fact that he picked up some very bad injuries. But that's the reality. We're starting at a different level. I think this is part of the kind of hangover of our difficult period where our club was in disarray, and we weren't buying well, and we weren't buying clever players. We weren't buying at the right time. That's changed. Now we're picking up the Aribos, and we're picking up the Morelos, and we're picking up players that we can improve. I think the term Gary used was players that we can kind of polish into diamonds. And it's going to take a couple of seasons for clubs to realise that and come and take them, and you see how these players go on.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, we have the two players that Gary referenced there, Alan Hutton and Jonathan Boomsong, went on and had spectacular careers. Looking at the stats here, Alan Hutton 51 games at Tottenham, 185 games in the Premier League at Aston Villa. Jonathan Boomsong went to Newcastle, to Juventus, to Lyon. Good careers, but I think you're right. The Virgil van Dijks, the Kieran Tierneys, who are the superstars of their team in the most glamorous and the most broadcast league in the world, is. I would also say that there's a role to be played by the media, and I think Celtic's media relations and PR over the last decade was so strong. And to a degree, you can see that kicking in with this Furuhashi, the new lad that they have up front, who the Daily Record spoke of as a potential £30 million player. Right, he's played 3 games, £30 million, and you go, there is and this isn't me claiming media bias. This is me saying very, very well-oiled PR machine that talks those players up and convinces people that they must be worth that much money. Probably doesn't help that we've now locked out the media unless they're willing to pay 25 grand a year. But that is a discussion maybe for another day. Gary, on Thursday, we travel 5.5 hours to Armenia. I said on the preview show that we did earlier in the week that this would have been probably my ideal European away trip. Former Soviet bloc, middle of nowhere, very cheap pints, would have been spectacular. Did you see anything? Obviously, we win the home leg 1-0, go down to 10 men in the first half, come out, very strong second half performance, I thought. We'd hoped maybe for more of a cushion so we can rest players ahead of the Old Firm. We haven't got that cushion. We've got 1 goal lead that we take out to Armenia. But did you see anything in that first leg to concern you that this second leg could give us some trouble?
I'd say most of the stuff I was concerned with came for ourselves, certainly not for that team. As I say, I think we've always got a kind of mistake in us. So the 1 goal isn't going to do us, I don't think. I think we need to go over there and score. And it doesn't help that we've not got the away goal anymore. I'd certainly, the best thing is that we seem to play better when we went down to 10 men. We're all to roll up our sleeves. And to me, that's a good sign.
Yeah, I think you're right. How would you approach this game? As you say, a 1 goal lead's not going to be enough. So I would agree we probably need to go and score. But a long way to travel. Apparently it can reach up to sort of 40 degrees over there at the moment. How do you approach a tie like this?
Just go to win. I'd play my strongest team, or the team that he believes is our strongest team at the moment, and then get the result. Hypothetically, if we went 2-3 up, then take players off and worry about Celtic. But I'd say we need to win this game first and then worry about Celtic after that.
Yeah, and what impact, Gary, do you think that the return of Glenn Kamara to European football could have?
I think he's massive. I think he's probably our best player in the full team. And I know I said earlier, John was saying earlier about Morelos, us building our team around them, which I totally agree with. But Glenn Kamara, I just think he's class. I think he's the one player that could go into an English top 5 team and be a standout. I think in the Euros, playing for Finland, he never had a bad game. It was absolutely awesome. And I'm very surprised that team's never came in for him. I'm happy, very happy. But him being in that team, to me, makes us better.
Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right. And like I said earlier, it's a real shame that he was unavailable for the Malmo games.
Certainly for the reasons he was suspended, it was absolutely shocking.
A disgrace. John, kind of the real devil's advocate question, and every time we ask a question like this on the show, the answer is always you play your strongest team, you play the team that's going to beat the challenge in front of you, and you don't worry about the game after that. However, the game after this coming tie on Thursday is the first Old Firm of the season. Celtic have started, maybe not started the season well, but their form in the last 3 weeks or so has been strong. They put 6 goals past St Mirren yesterday. Admittedly, St Mirren down to 10 men very early on. Yes, we play our strongest side. Yes, we pick the team that wins this challenge, and then we worry about Celtic after Armenia. But surely the management team have one eye on next Sunday. How do you think that affects the preparation and the selection for Thursday's game?
I don't think it makes the slightest difference to the selection. I think I'm going to give the boring answer and say yes. We pick our strongest team. The Thursday's game is more important than Sunday's, and I say that because qualifying for the Europa League at this stage I think is vital. The league it's only going to be the fourth match in the league. The league's a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we can if we lose next Sunday, the league's not over. It gives them a shot in the arm. The media will go wild, but the league is not over. Last season, and this I think is important because I think there's a generation of Rangers fans who've basically grown up and never seen us win the league until last season. It's the first time they ever saw us win the league. I remember seeing us win the league. Last season wasn't normal. You don't normally win the league in March. That's not how it usually works. Normally, there's at least 2 teams, and it's usually us and it's usually them, and we're competing right to the very end. And we all, if we weren't actually there and don't remember them, we've certainly read about them. Leagues that went right to the very end, like literally the last game of the season. And that's normal in our league. Last season wasn't normal. Okay, that's not normal, right? Celtic are going to put up a challenge this season, and we need to accept that. I don't think Celtic have become world beaters overnight. They've got a new manager in. He's managed to give them a bit of confidence. He's managed to give them a bit of belief. He's got the good players playing, right? They still have a defence made of wet cardboard. And, let's not pretend otherwise. They haven't turned into world beaters overnight. They've become a better team, and they'll give us a bit a harder game. And, whatever the result of that game is, it won't define the season. It won't change the season. Winning or losing on Thursday night will have a far, far bigger impact in our season, both financially and also for prestige. The Europa League has been a tournament we've all enjoyed. And I think any manager going into that with one eye, the management team are looking, they're looking at players, who's going to be ready in 3 weeks' time, who's going to be ready in 2 weeks' time. I get all that. But the management team's focus as of 5 o'clock today is Thursday. And Thursday only. And then, there's no point in making plans for Sunday, because who knows what will happen on Thursday? Who's going to pick up a knock? There's clearly issues in the squad just now. That the bench looked a little bare today, I thought. There's clearly issues in the squad. McLaughlin wasn't even on the bench. What's happened to him? There's obviously stuff going on that the club are keeping to themselves. And I'm sure they're doing that for very, very good reasons. Sunday will take care of itself. It's at home. And I'm a little frustrated that Rangers supporters are getting a bit nervous about this. You know what? This is reality. Reality is Celtic are a hard team to beat. Celtic will always have a good team. Celtic will always give us a game, and sometimes they'll come out on top. But over the piece, we come out on top more often than that, because we have to win with the right mentality. And the right mentality is win Thursday, and Sunday then will take care of itself.
Does any of that get tempered by the fact that they'll be playing, as I say, 40-degree heat, up to 11 hours worth of travelling? Does that impact on this at all, or is it?
It impacts in terms of the preparation for Thursday's game. In the end, 5-hour flight. I looked at the weather. I knew we obviously had the agenda, so I knew you were going to ask. The weather forecast for Thursday currently in Yerevan, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, is for a high of 30. So I suspect by 8 o'clock in the evening, or whatever time the game's kicking off local time, 6 o'clock or whatever, it's going to be high 20s. So that's not going to be a huge amount of fun to play in. It certainly should give them something of an advantage, I suspect. The fact that it's at home will give them an advantage, but they've not got a big support. They're not a particularly well-liked team, from what I can gather. They're a kind of funny team. They're a bit of Livingston about them, with a bit of money behind them, but not many fans. It will make a difference, and there will be players who will be, I don't know if our flight, takes off, at 11 o'clock local time after the match and head straight home. We'll have players who will be tired. We will have players going into Sunday's game that it won't be the best preparation. But losing on Thursday will be even worse preparation for Sunday. So what's important is those players go into that game with a spring in their step. And Celtic have got a game midweek, and that's no gimme either. Yes, it's a considerably shorter flight. Yes, it's not going to be in 30-degree heat, but a lot can happen in football in a week. Let's see. We have a big enough squad. We should be able to put a team out on Sunday and a team out on Thursday that can win both those games, because they're both winnable games. Yeah, no, I think you're absolutely right, and that's such a good point, that losing the game on Thursday, being knocked into the Europa Conference League, that is worse preparation. Absolutely.
And I think as a fan base, probably take the emotion. It's impossible to take the emotion out of an Old Firm tie, particularly the first Old Firm tie with fans back in the stands, and obviously quite interesting because no Celtic fans will be present as well, which kind of adds another dimension to it. But I think we would all kind of agree with that, the arithmetic of that in terms of finances, in terms of the rest of the season, that Thursday's game is more important, Sunday's game is more emotional, and but that's the management's job, isn't it? Is to do the maths on that and realise that we do not compromise on Thursday for the sake of the emotion of the following game. Right, I think that takes us very, very nicely to the top of the hour, and so it's probably a good place for us to end it there. As I say, there will be preview shows looking ahead to the Allocations game on Thursdays. We'll probably do that Wednesday night, and a preview ahead of the first Old Firm of the season. So please do make sure you join us for those, and if you can't join us live, they will of course be available for download as well. I'd like to say a massive thank you to John and to Gary as well, who's, as I say, joined us for the very first time, and I'm sure he will be warmly invited back. A massive thank you as well to everyone who's joined in with the questions and the comments on the YouTube stream. And as I say, the show will always be available for download on a Monday morning. The show will be back after all the previews. We will be back next Sunday. Colin will be in the hot seat and myself as a guest, looking back at the Allocations game, looking back at the Celtic game. So please do join us for that. That's next Sunday, the 29th of August at 9:30 p.m. Please do head over to the website in the meantime at gersnet.co.uk and get involved in the very friendly discussion forum. Until next time, thank you so much for listening and have a great week.